Yo,
Yeah, I know
yo,
those
good
guys.
day. You
Hey
know those
guys,
guys?
I know those guys.
Yo, Chris, how are you today, man?
I'm good, gentlemen. Thanks for
That's
having me.
awesome. Well, we are doing a second episode because
That's
we
right.
had a few technical difficulties on our first recording with Chris, and we just like, man, his personality, his influence in the industry is so good. We had to do it again and do it right. So
That's right. And
today
so,
we're doing it right.
yep, we're doing it right. And we're literally just weeks away from you being here on site for TRCMA.
Yep.
That's
That's
gonna be
it's always exciting. I mean, I love the Rag Company. I love everything they do. They're my exclusive distributor on Amazon. And in the old days when I first started, I'd have like 5 cases of solution finish on the floor, and I'd be like, God, I wish somebody would buy my shit.
Yeah.
Now I look at 5 pallets going on out, and I'm like, pallets, and I'm like, where's it going? Who's who's
Yep.
buying it?
Well,
So
and that's the cool part about that is I think that, like anything, as it gets out in the industry, people realize that it's value.
Yeah.
They see the value of using a product that it simply does what it says it's going to do, right?
right.
And it doesn't over promise. It's not going to turn your Yugo into a Ferrari, but
Right.
it's going to make your Yugo look pretty damn good.
It is gonna make it look
So-
damn good. So
Yeah, speaking of Ferraris, I was looking at them the other day. I was going to get one. Everything was going perfect. Pick what I wanted: the rims, the tires, the color, and at the end, there seemed to be an issue with the money part. So I wasn't able to pull it off. So,
what, they wouldn't take
Yeah.
your cash?
yeah. Well, I had my truck and I had a pallet of solution finish. I was doing the barter thing.
That's right.
They
Yeah,
weren't going for.
I was looking at one the other day too, but it was in the store and I couldn't decide to buy that little $5 model. So I
Right.
said, yeah, and I'm going to leave that one on the.
Yeah.
So
That's
good.
about my budget.
that's right. My Ferrari budget's pretty low. Let's talk about this. What year did you start Solution Finish?
Okay. In 2009, 2010, the real estate market took another shit in California. Everything blew out. And I had just finished 7 multi-million-dollar custom homes.
Wow.
They were average 8,000 square feet, landscape, front and backyard, half acre, gated community, Tuscany style houses. 6 of the 7 won awards, and I couldn't sell them for shit. We sold one for $3,250,000, and they all were in the $5.5 million range, right? So it crashed again. So what we ended up doing is just leasing 6 of them for like 5 years. Can you imagine leasing an 8,000 square foot brand new Tuscany style home? And they were gorgeous. They're by far the nicest stuff I ever built, but it took a crap. So I had this idea about a trim product 18 years before, because I owned coin operated car wash as part of my development company. I owned and operated and built them. And guys would always ask me, what can we do with our plastic? And I'd give them all the old hacks: liquid cupping machine, silicone, heat gun, vegetable oil, peanut butter oil, just the old things. Because at that time they were using, of course, Armor All.
Yeah.
And it was in the turtle wax days, but I thought, what would happen if there was a way to put the colorant back into the part that's faded and chalky oxidized, degenerating. And so in 2010, I just spent 6 months in my garage, trying to figure it out. I had plastic pieces from the junkyard, and I was doing it all in shot glasses, and I put it on and go, no, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that one. And then I just kind of had that eureka moment, where I went, oh, That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm not as smart as most guys. So I just did a lot of reading. I probably read 4,000 pages on polymers and why it oxidizes, what happens when it oxidizes, and the whole, without getting into weeds, figuring it out. And in fact, I didn't know. I couldn't just get samples.
Auto and tire.
Sorry. My truck's ready. Yeah, of course. I've been waiting for it for 3 days, and now during the podcast,
Well, sure.
yeah, of course. So I couldn't get them. I didn't really know what I wanted, but every time I had an idea or read something, I would order it from a crazy chemist in Arizona, and he would start sending me, 500 milliliters of this, that, and the other, and because he could get it for free, and from any chemical manufacturers, because he's a well-known guy.
Yeah.
And he would just start giving it to me, and after about 3 months, he goes, Chris, I know you're nice. You sound like a nice guy and everything, but none of this shit goes together, right?
Yeah.
Because I had all the stuff, and then I ended up meeting him about 2 years after Solution Finish, started, and he was introducing me at a little convention type thing like we have, a little chemists get together, and he would introduce me. He goes, I want you to meet Chris West. I've been working with him on a project, and let me tell you something. It's not that Chris thinks outside of the box. It's Chris was never in the friggin' box. So,
Yeah, and I think that's what kind of, innovation usually comes from a problem you want to solve. And the best ones come from an actual problem you want to solve that you're not thinking in the back of your head, and then I get $1 million. You're thinking,
right.
I want to solve this problem. How do I solve the problem?
Right.
And I think that's where, there's a lot of products. Every year we see products. My God, we see products everywhere. And there's some that are just fantastic. We ran into a guy in the Netherlands that has a paint touch-up kit. He cannot import it in the United States. I don't know why, but there's restrictions. It's the best paint touch-up I've ever seen.
Wow.
When you fill a crack or you fill a chip, usually the paint you put it on and then it shrinks. His does the opposite. As it cures, it rises up. So you just scrape off the top and it's done. It's done. It's wonderful. But he wanted to solve that problem. He wanted to solve the problem of paint shrinking, where with yours, you solved the problem of the polymers oxidizing. So for those people that are going to watch you on TRCMA, you're going to go over the whole thing and how to do the installation, which is, you've always said you can
three steps.
Simple. Shake the freaking bottle.
Shake the bottle.
And then you gotta install it. And then, but I think people want to overcomplicate it. They want it to be so overcomplicated. I've seen a guy put on Solution Finish with a polishing pad. And I'm like, okay, you're overcomplicating a pretty simple solution. So
right. Well, my friend Sergio, he was doing a avalanche, a big tonneau cover. So he took a black finishing pad, put Solution Finish on it, and just worked a big area, because you could do it. Now on a small area, that makes no sense. But I thought it was pretty clever. I don't know if it's better or faster, but when you get the product on the part being treated and buff it off, then it doesn't matter how it really gets there.
And I think Avalanche is the absolute perfect vehicle to showcase Solution Finish, because they go from just hideous to really nice, because they're just all plastic. Honda Odyssey, there's
the funny thing, and of course the Avalanches is my poster child, but people don't realize that the plastic on a Avalanche, the running boards, the quarter panels, the cab extension, tonneau cover, it comes from 6 different manufacturers.
Oh, geez.
Which means when you see an Avalanche, you can see extremely oxidized pieces and ones that still have some black to it. And then like the back rail, you know, the cap on the back, right? It stays perfectly black. And the reason being is because people don't realize plastic doesn't oxidize. Pure plastic does not oxidize. It's the impurities and the fillers that the manufacturers put in. That's why like a Hyundai or something, Saturn, a cheap car, we'll call it, because it's just a cheap car, right? So they're cutting costs in every way they can. That's why, you know, you can see faded bumpers in a Saturn dealership coming from the window. That's how bad it is, you know. And then the nicer cars, Mercedes, BMW, so forth, it stays black for a much longer period, you know. So, I mean, you don't see our war fighters in Afghanistan with gray, chalky M16s. You know, they got black barrels, black handguards, and, you know, because it's pure plastic. It's very, you know, all of that. But
the interesting one I think is on avalanches on the bed extension. You'll see actually oxidation waves, which I've always thought of that. I'm like, that means the material is not even well mixed because there's certain impurities that are hitting high and low points in the production of that plastic. And so that's why I think it's important for people to understand that there's a difference between like a grease or like an Armor All versus a solution finish that actually has, that's what that black, when you're shaking it up, it's there's more in it. It's not, they're not equivalent products.
No. Plastic, black plastic on a vehicle, I mean, almost universally, you know, whether it's rubber, hoses, tires, you know, whatever it is on a vehicle that's black, the colorant is a PVK6 carbon, and everybody uses that. You know, it's not a real expensive carbon, but it's what they use, you know. And what happens is when UV radiation starts degrading the plastic, those bands start popping, you know, that hold the whole thing together. And then it weakens the one next to it, you know, just like a chain. It just keeps on breaking. So once oxidation starts, you cannot stop it. But what it does do is when it pops like that, it creates deep microscopic pores in the plastic. So PVK6 carbon is, the way they mill it, we'll call it too fat to be able to absorb into the part being treated. So what I've done is my carbon, I've milled that's literally half the size of a virus, and it can get down deep into those microscopic pores with a little carbon lake, black carbon lake, you know. Before I came on the scene, everybody had their trim dressings. Everybody called it was a trim dressing, you know, which is fine. But what happens is when it's wet, whether it's just straight oil, transmission fluid, brake fluid, you put it on it. The reason it looks black again is because the reflection of the light off of the part through the wet material.
Yeah.
Well, solution finish is different because you're applying it, it absorbs that colorant, and then when you buff off the excess, you're removing that oil, so it's actually colored the part, not from light refraction, you know.
Right.
So, but in 2010, I had that eureka moment where I came up with what I thought I was trying to accomplish, you know, but I was doing everything in shot glasses.
Yeah.
So now I'm thinking, how do I scale this up? Because it has 8 different ingredients, and 2 of them, I'm putting in 2 or 3 drops in a shot glass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how much is that when it comes to a 55-gallon barrel? You know, even a 5-gallon barrel, because I tried to scale up from there. So it was, you know, and that kind of math was just out of my league, you know, really. Trying to figure that out. But 2011 is when I actually had solution finish in a bottle with a label, because the first year is, your copyright, making your labels, buying the equipment, because I don't outsource anything,
Right.
whereas I formulate, bottle, cap, label, ship, there's nothing, all the parts and pieces come in one door, and a fully completed product goes out the back door. So no blenders, no bottling up people that I deal with. I just buy the parts and pieces and make it happen,
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's the thing is I think that there's very few what I would call pure companies, right? And that means, like you said, raw product comes in one door, and when it goes out the other door, it's a complete now packaged, finished good.
right.
And that's what's unique, I think, about very few companies in our industry, and that's pretty, I think, awesome from the standpoint of it's still a pure product. Now you've made improvements over the years. There's a new version that came out.
Right.
Little Steve was really excited after he got his first hands on a couple of those bottles. He gave me some of it. He's like, you got to try it out. You got to try it out. And I'm like, okay, I've tried it. I'll try it again. And
Right.
so
Nice.
I think that's what's good. And it's funny because I've got my father's he's one of the guys that got me into automotive, and he's at this point, I think, I'm going to misspeak, but I think he's 84 this year. Anyway, still a car guy, still redoes his own, does his own cars. He's a hardcore Carnauba wax guy.
Mm-hmm.
But he came to me last year and he's like, hey, I'm out of Armor All. And I'm like, I just shook my head and I was like,
I can help you.
That's good. And he's like,
Right.
well, I need something. Do you got something? And I'm like, Dad, I've got a shop full of stuff. So he came over and I gave him a bottle and I said, I want you to try this, follow the instructions, and then tell me what you think. And so it was funny because he's got a couple of cars, he's got a truck, he's got an RV, and I go over there and I'm looking at the plastic stuff on the RV and I'm like, did you? He's like, oh yeah, it's on everything. So he's that lady with,
Nice.
with the hot sauce. He puts that shit on everything, man.
Oh, I get guys sending me pictures of their barbecues, cast iron barbecue, or their wrought iron fences around their pool. Instead of weenie rolling a paint on it, they just get a sponge and just go sheet, sheet, and and I mean, it's not what it's for, but powder coated parts absorb solution finish pretty good. So guys will do their trailers, and evidence of that is your windshield wipers. The arm. They'll do that. Well, that's not plastic, obviously, but it's pretty astounding how much better it looks. Especially if you do the window cowl and then you have oxidized arms. So
Yeah, well, it's funny because there's a lot of people that don't understand that cowl right under their window that has where the wipers are, that's plastic. There's so much plastic in any vehicle nowadays. And if you don't take care of it, it goes beyond the oxidation. It actually turns very brittle and it breaks, and the UV
Exactly
rays
right.
break that stuff down.
Yeah.
I mean, and so I think that's one of the biggest challenges people have is keeping those plastic parts in the best condition you can. So you've got your stuff now, you're pumping it through, like you said, the TRC MA is coming up. The Rag Company sells it exclusively on Amazon, but your production facility, it was funny because you and I were talking several years ago, and you're like, I had to do this thing called hire these things called employees. So now you've expanded your whole whole
how's that
operation.
adventure
Yeah,
been?
how's that adventure been for you?
it's pretty incredible, because for 8 years I was 100% on my own. I mean, nobody. And then my son was working part-time when I'd get overwhelmed, working. I still work 7 days a week, but what happened is my son, he's 21. So I call these three guys full-time, part-time, because what they do is they work 5 days a week, sometimes 6, for 4 hours each. And so we have CJ will come in and I'll make a couple batches. We'll bottle it all up, cap it. Then Liam will come in at the same time as my son, and they'll start rolling the labels, packing, bagging. Because the irritating thing about Amazon is it has to be bagged and it has to have their label on it.
Yep.
So just a lot of work. But now that I have my bigger shop, it's so much easier, because what I can do is I can buy and I have this last year, I bought 20,000 bottles at one time instead of the 3,000 bottles I'd buy, because I didn't have room for it. And instead of buying, a 55-gallon drum, I'll buy 8 55-gallon drums, of chemicals. So now during my slow period, when things are kind of slow, we just keep on jamming. So right now I'm pretty well sitting on 250 cases ready to go at all times.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And that includes the 2 ounce, because I changed from the little 1 ounce bottle to the 2 ounce bottle. I didn't change the price, which everybody says I'm a fool for doing, but it just looks better. And if a guy's trying it for the first time, I realize that they use way too much at first, so they'll, instead of, the little 1 ounce bottle, I could do 3 vehicles, they would do 2 bumpers and it would be gone. And then when they buff it off, their microfiber towel will be dripping wet with it. They've lost all that material. So, it gives them a little cushion to be able to complete at least one Jeep. I mean, I've done several avalanches with 3 bottles of solution finish 1 ounce, but you got to know what you're doing. I would spread it and, go and go and go until nothing else is going to the part, and then redip it, so.
Yeah. But I think that's I'm going to tap back into when you were doing construction. You can tell the difference between a good contractor or construction person and somebody that's an amateur, in that at the end, you're like, how many sheets of OSB did you waste to build that floor? Well, I need another 12 sheets. And you're like, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
You start out with a quarter of a sheet, and then you stagger it, and you use every single freaking piece. And I showed that to my nephew. We're rebuilding the house that I've got. We added 1,500 square feet, and he did one half and I did the other half. And he's like, I need 12 more sheets OSB. And I'm like, no, you don't. He goes, how did you do that? And I'm like, because I started with a small piece and then you stagger it. So that's the same thing, is people, owners use every drop. Employees lather that stuff off. So that's, I'm like, if your towel that you're using to wipe off either ceramic, solution finish, or any product is dripping when you're done, you're using too much. So I think it's, people assume a lot about products, but with solution finish anyway, when I've done it, the first time I did it, the same thing. I put way too much on there because I was thinking old school, an oil product. I put it on there and I'm like, well, this just keeps going. It just keeps going. It keeps going. And I do the same thing. I start massaging it out. I'm like, I've got a whole, fender well of a Jeep done, and I've got a couple of drops on there. This is fantastic. So,
and what I tell people as well is, once you're done with your microfiber applicator, put it in a baggie and it stays fresh. And a lot of guys will just keep it in their glove compartment, pull it out and freshen up their mirrors and wipe off the top of the bumpers and just get it fresh, because it brings it back. It doesn't dry out the way it used to,
That's awesome.
It's so funny the way you turns your head. I just realized, is that a solution finish hat?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, I just noticed that because the way the glare was, it was kind of, very good.
Yes, sir. I'm like, how come I don't have
this
one?
was what this was.
What's up with that?
Well, I know what happened, and it's funny he says that, because there was a trip, you had the open day in your shop. I couldn't go down there, and Jody went down there, and he brought me back the hat.
I brought you a hat.
And then years later, like, why don't I have one of those? And I'm like, because you gave it to me. You don't ever wear hats. Bald guys wear hats.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but that's a good hat. I would wear that hat
Yeah.
because a lot of times
Yeah.
I get hats and they're either too tall or
Oh yeah.
they got a
Yeah.
weird bip in them.
Yep.
But that's an awesome
Yep,
hat. So
But I
gotta-
think
You know,
that-
I always wanted to make them and, you know, buy them and sell them, you know, have merch type stuff, but those hats are so friggin' expensive. You know, I mean, like, what am I'm going to have to charge a guy $25 a hat, you know, and
Yeah.
that's embarrassing. You know, I'm
Yeah,
trying to get them to promote my product by wearing it, and I'm going to, you know, charge them up the ass for a hat. But
yeah.
So I want to go there because a lot of times we struggle with pricing. I mean, detailers all the time. How much do I charge for this? How much do I charge for that? And for you to go, you know what? I'm going to go from a 1 ounce to a 2 ounce. I'm not going to change the price. And a lot of people have encouraged you to change the price.
Mhm.
What is it about the psychology of that pricing is kept you at that same price? Because automatically most people would charge more.
I can tell you, we tracked 200 people that bought at that time a 1 ounce bottle, right? Within 6 months of that purchase, almost 97% of the people ended up buying a 12 ounce bottle.
Yep.
So my thinking is the more, you know, I don't make very much money on the 2 ounce, you know, pretty much break even, we'll call it, right? But the
Yeah.
more, the thousands of bottles I get out there, I know it's going to turn into a 12 ounce sale, you know, and it's been like that. You know, I get text messages from a guy who goes, son of a bitch, I bought the 2 ounce bottle and I should have bought the 12 ounce, you know. Yeah, I said, well, you know, so that's,
Yeah.
you know, I keep it reasonably priced so people will, you know, when they're surfing around and they're looking at all the other Amazon stuff and they go, oh, for $14, I can try that, you know.
Yeah. No, and I
So-
think that's an important thing, right? Because I think a lot of times we're afraid to give a price for a product and or service that is attractable, right? It's like, whoa, you know, catches your attention. And it's kind of like, you know, giving candy to a baby. Dude, once you try it
Right.
once, you want more.
Well, that's what the
Yeah.
thing is. Like when my dad came over, I gave him a little. I've had the big bottles. I got a 12 ounce of the new, and I gave him a little bottle because I knew he'd come back. He's like, "Hey, do you have any
Yeah.
more of that?" Yep. Then I
Yeah.
gave him the bigger bottle because I was like, "You're not going to go waste this big one. Use the little one."
Well,
So
I learned that little trick when I used to sell drugs, you know.
Yeah.
You know, just give them a little bit and they'll come back, you know.
That's
So,
right.
That's
That's
all
right.
you need, man. Just a taste, and you got a lifetime fan.
That's it.
I tell you something funny about price. When I first started, nobody would even look at me or talk to me about it. You know, I sent out hundreds of bottles in a nice little box, cut out the foam, pressed in the 1 ounce, and had a nice little little card. I sent them to, you know, just hundreds of guys. I mean, probably like 1,200 went out, you know. And remember that I wasn't making any money. I went from my hotshot building and developing to zero, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm sending these out, and nobody was interested. You know, a couple guys just, yeah. I said, did you give it a try? No, it's on my shelf someplace. Well, a guy named Mel Craig, right?
Yep.
You know Mel? Yeah.
I know.
Yes, I know
Revivify.
Mel, yep.
He's the very first detailer I ever gave a bottle to,
Okay.
because when I started, I remember I came out of the car wash industry. I thought I was making something for the car wash industry, not. And everybody goes, no, that Chris, you gotta talk to the detailers. Go, what detailers? You know, the guys that wash cars professionally, you know, for a living. I go,
Right.
where do I find them? You know, so
Yeah.
I looked it up, and Mel Craig Detailing Pros was literally on the other side of the street in his in Huntington Beach. So I took it to him, and he's like, yeah, almost like, oh, here we go, another, you know, gonna make a fortune making a product. Well, about 8 months later, they had a Jeep come in and they couldn't even get it to budge. And he goes, "Where's that? Wait a minute. That kid brought in something," which is funny. He goes, "That kid brought something in and let me try that." And he calls me, goes, "Are you friggin' kidding me with this?"
Yeah.
So he was the very first. But talk about price. Nobody was looking at me. Nobody would even consider it, look at it. So if you go back originally when Auto Geek started selling it, when I was selling it by myself, it was $125 a bottle for a 12 ounce.
Wow.
And people are going, "What?" Yeah, well, you know what? I'll give you a break, $100, and they're like, "It's so expensive. How can it not be unbelievable?" Right. So Auto Geek for the first 6 months had it on their site for $125 a bottle, and then we dropped it to $75, and then saw some sales, very, very low sales, but people started talking about how can he possibly think he's going to sell this for $75? And everybody's saying, "I don't know, let's try it." And they would buy it for $75, and then, we dropped it to something more reasonable, obviously. So, which is still kind of more expensive per bottle. But if you look at per application, it's half of what anybody else is selling.
Oh yeah.
And the thing about it is, if you're doing
that's the
it,
value.
if you're doing it as a professional and you're doing it the right way, you're going to get so much. It's unbelievable how many uses you can get out of a 12-ounce bottle.
Especially if you're not slathering it on like Rod.
I don't slather it on. I'm a cheap ass.
You
I put
are
that stuff
cheap.
on the tip of your finger and rub it till it's gone. But
no, it's really funny how that worked. That's exactly what happened. In fact, I don't mind saying, I'm sure he doesn't mind, I was sitting with, not to name drop, but I was sitting with Barry Maguire, right?
Yeah.
And I asked him, hang on. I asked him, "You know what? He was congratulating me with my success in, starting this." And I said, "Let me ask you something. Why haven't any of the big wax wall guys," I call them wax wall guys because you walk into AutoZone and it's,
right.
Armor All, Meguiar's, Mothers, I said, "Why haven't you guys knocked off my product?" Or, he goes, "Oh, I can answer that with no problem. Simple, 2 things. One, it goes too friggin' far. We want to put something in a 16-ounce spray bottle, and a guy buys it. He maybe on 2 Sundays washes a car with it, and it's gone, and they're ordering more.
Right.
Secondly, it lasts too long. We don't want anything that takes a little bit and then friggin' lasts forever. We're in the bottle selling business,
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's the whole thing. Is it's funny because
maybe you should dilute your stuff.
No, because then it doesn't go on.
A solution light for AutoZone.
Yeah, we're going to do a knockoff. It's going to be called Solution Almost Finish, and it lasts half as long.
Oh, you don't understand how many guys have. Well, early along, I had 3 sizes. I had my shop size, which was 32-ounce bottle, the pro size 12 ounce, and then the individual size at that time 1 ounce. And the 32-ounce bottle would come in a case of 4. So you got a gallon of Solution Finish. Guys were buying those and then pouring it into their own little bottles and bootlegging a Solution Finish label on it. So the tricks the guys would pull all the time. And I get guys saying, "Yeah, I just bought everybody contacts me, and they look up Solution Finishes, and then they want to talk to me about their problem." And say, "Yeah," I said, "Oh, really? I've never heard of that happening. Where did you buy it?" "Oh, I bought it on eBay."
Yeah.
I bought it on Craigslist." And I'm like, "And you think that's what I was selling, that is what I sold you,
Yeah.
Well, and so it's sad. But
people are always looking for an angle to take advantage of somebody else's success.
Well, I don't mind saying I'm always looking for an angle, but a legitimate one, something that, is appropriate.
Yeah.
It's a tough business, you have to really, 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 really build the loyalty and back it. I can't tell you how many bottles I've sent out per year on somebody that bought something from someplace else. The cap was broken. It spilled all over. They can't get any resolution with what people they bought it from. And I just give me a number. I'll send you a new bottle. I've done that hundreds of times. Or somebody knocks over a bottle and it go all the way down somebody's driveway. So you just do that. I don't, because I'm a fanatic when it comes to people. I can get 10,000 unbelievable posts about Solution Finish. I get one negative one and I can't sleep that night until I talk to that guy.
I've seen you actually the one several years ago. The one that was one of my favorites is somebody that said that it was flammable.
And that.
And you're like, okay, and you could just I can hear it in your voice when you're like, okay. And it was so funny because I don't think people understand when you take the risk of throwing that out there, you make it worse for yourself.
Right.
And I don't think people understand that nowadays. It's so fast to react to something and to put out a video that goes, okay, I'm going to do this now, and we're going to see what it does. And then now that person looks like an idiot, and all they've done is given you more business. So, that's one of the great things that I think about you. You stay out of the fray. You don't let that stuff get to you as far as firing back. It was funny. I was talking to Tommy Ramos last night, and he and I were just going back and forth talking about stuff, going to concerts and music and whatnot. And I said, it's funny because the younger guys don't understand that as you get older, in your mind, you still like the things that you did in your 20-year-old self, right? You still like fast motorcycles and doing all stuff. Your body may tell you you're not going to go do that.
I can assure you that.
But you don't change in that aspect of it.
Right.
But you also mature to the level of you don't get drug into some of that stuff, the fray. You're like, yeah, I'm not interested in getting into a screaming match with you over something so simple as a 12-ounce bottle of product,
And mostly the reason I don't is because people think, talk to my wife, she'll back me up on this. I'm as mean as a snake. I have a furious temper, and if I don't watch it, control it, blow things off, and you're right. It has to do with maturity, not that I'm saying I'm all mature, but I'm certainly, and I think a lot of it has to do with when I stopped drinking alcohol, So
that has a lot to do. But again, that's a maturing thing too. I think
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that don't know that about Jody, but Jody has got a hell of a temper. And there's only a couple people I know, including myself, that have ever seen it come out. And people are like, "Oh no, Jody is."
Rod's
seen it. No,
Rod's seen
that I think the maturity
I've learned to temper it, man. It's like
it comes into controlling it and recognizing when you're about to do something. And I call it when I'm about to do something stupid. Okay, I'm about to open up my stupid and let it show here. And I think that is, younger people that haven't matured to that level, or somebody that's you're just like.
Well, and I think a lot of times it's just stepping back and going, is this really that important?
Yeah.
I mean, is this going to affect me in 6 months, a year, 5 years down the road? And a lot of times it's just not that important. I've been watching with great curiosity Sergeant Poundcake. Have you heard about this? So the rapper that made the song Because I Got High?
Yeah.
Well, just like a month ago, the police came in, busted open his door, ransacked his house, and they found nothing. Found absolutely nothing.
Afro Man.
Right. They walk in, and there is nothing that they get. And so he has security cams, and he's filming these officers going through his house. And he's like, look, I'm going to be a good citizen. Look, you guys came in, you didn't find nothing. Just pay to have my house fixed. Well,
Yeah.
They didn't.
they said, no, we're not going to do that. So he went
Right.
through his video footage and
Yeah.
he made some funny rap songs, and dude, they were catching fire. And so when they were trying to squash it, they actually exploded the
Yeah,
situation
yeah.
because they reacted instead of acted.
Right. And they actually took him to court and they lost.
$4 million.
Right.
Yeah,
they
the guy
lost.
got $4 million for this now. So I think that's the maturity level, is looking at it and saying, what at the end of the day, and this is what my dad and I have always talked about, goes, look, at the end of the day, you're going to be sitting in a chair next to somebody having that conversation about your life. What did you do? What did I do? You're not going to talk about how badass you were. You're going to be talking about your kids. You're going to be talking about experiences. This one time I took this road trip. It was 400 miles, 2,000 miles. It's great. I got to see all this countryside, all stuff. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, tomorrow we could all be digging ditches. So I think that's what's important. And when people get together and they have these conversations, there's a lot of times where, we've kind of worked the stupid out of us. Hopefully, that's what my wife says. Hopefully, we've worked some of that stupid out.
Every once in a while, it creeps up.
Well,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think people don't understand how, when they get to that point, you have to do that. Years and years ago, I can tell you the exact moment that, because I used to do a bunch of crazy stuff. Chris and I have talked about this. I jumped motorcycles and wheelies and burnouts and drag race cars, and used to jump over the canals on our dirt bikes. And my nephews had set up a ramp with their BMX bikes, man, and they were jumping over the top of this dirt mound. And I was probably in my 30s at this point, but I was old enough to not be stupid. And I got on the bike, and my wife's sitting there just shaking her head going, here we go.
Yeah.
And I started down the path, and my brain just went, you know what? You are not 16 years old anymore. And I just turned and went over and said, here you go.
Really?
Yeah.
Here's
You turned away?
I turned away. My brain
I
said,
don't think I would have turned away.
that is not
Yeah.
going to end well for you. And that's,
Right.
that was one point in time where my brain said, you may think it's still cool to do this, but it's not going to end well
The
for you.
brain won.
The brain
Wow, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
But I think that
Because
equates
the ego
also,
on me would have lost.
yeah, but that equates exactly what we're talking about in business, right? The ego says, I made a 2-ounce bottle, I'm going to double the price. But the brain says, that's not a smart move. The brain said, you're going to get more customers with a 2-ounce bottle. They're going to buy the 12, and you're going to make more money off the 12. And that is the difference. Some people try to monetize everything, right? People have asked us for years. This podcast has been going on since 2019. We are the longest running detailing podcast in the industry, with the exception of if Mel Craig had continued his. Mel Craig was one of the very first ones.
Yes.
But people have said, why don't you have a sponsor on here? And we're like, because this is our podcast. We're trying to help promote other people and ourselves. We're the sponsor of this, and we want to be pure so that every time we have somebody on like Chris West, it's all about Chris. It's not about Chris West. Welcome to the Turtle Wax podcast, where we're talking to Chris. No, hell with that. I'm not going to do that. This isn't a NASCAR race. I don't have, logos of every company out there that's ever been on the podcast.
Right.
So I think that's what's important, is to stay pure, to let the brain win, and not worry about collecting an extra $5 from somebody every time you turn around.
Right. It's pretty amazing how I was able to stay in the game until a miracle happened, because believe me when I tell you, when I was doing real estate construction development, I was making huge amounts of money. I mean, not just, be able to buy a house and have a car, kind of money. And then I came up with this, and and I had just gotten married to Kimmy. So, we're living in a big house in a golf course. And I said, okay, I got this idea. And I'm telling my friends I have this idea, and they go, wait, whoa. You're not going to build anymore. You're not going to sell real estate. You're not going to do any of that. And you got some black inky stuff that goes on the cars or plastic or what are you doing? So we scaled down. We got a condo instead of the big house on the golf course, got rid of the Escalade. She got rid of the BMW, the X5, you know, and all of a sudden we were $13,000 less monthly, and as happy as can be. You know,
Yeah.
it was funny how once you remove all that pressure, you know, $22,000 a month of fixed bills, then, you know, but then just as really pretty much the last year or two when it started happening, and she was just going, she gets all choked up and, you know, sees the bank account and how we're doing. She goes, oh, so it's really happening, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's what's really great about it, is because a lot of people, you know, they have that kind of fake mentality of grind, and they show themselves out there working at 2:00 in the morning, and it's kind of a persona. It's not real. But when people really do work for a goal, and that's what I know that you and I are from the generation. We're all from the generation that's what we grew up on, man. You work hard and it will pay off.
Work ethics, yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I think about you doing 8 years by yourself, right? And I think about Rod and I, the first 3, 5, 7 years, just working every hour, taking every call, just with the vision of trying to build something. And all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, whoa, I've built something.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you get a great relationship with the company like the Rag Company, that all of a sudden they take you to a level that you never even imagined.
Right.
But it's built on the foundation that you built. And I'm sure Kimmy's just going, wow, you know, because when you take the step to pull back, to eliminate, to free yourself, to move, that's scary.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's scary to step away from what you've known and go, you know what? I have a bigger vision here. I'm going to build it. It's going to take us some time, and usually it takes longer than you think.
Oh yeah.
Right.
But man, you get to a certain point and you're like, wow, look what we've built.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, I just got married. So it's like, what did I get myself into? You know, this hot shot all of a sudden is quitting everything, you know. And the thing about Solution Finish is I have never spent one penny on marketing.
Yeah.
Nothing. No clicks, no advertising, no Facebook, not one penny ever. The detailers in the industry that do their videos and show before and after and talk about it. And then, you know, I was surprised to see, I never was on TikTok, and I was told I should see some of the stuff that's on it. So I'm watching. There's hundreds of little clips of Solution Finish on everything, you know. And then I started looking at, wow, I'm on eBay and I'm in Walmart, you know, their site. And I'm like, I don't even know who those people are, you know?
Yeah.
So it just kind of, it's 100% organic, if that's the right word, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's a testament to what you've built, right? When you can take your customers and they want to be your fans. They're like, oh, dude, look at what I found. Look what I discovered. And look what it did. Dude, when you get to that point, growth comes.
It's funny because Jody and I started real similar. We started in 2009. We worked at another software company. And, you know, prior to that, I was in automotive. And so that's kind of why we got drawn into this industry. Though we started out, and it was funny because we thought, oh man, you have these ideas of success. We're going to have a building, we'll have employees, we'll do all this stuff. When it really clicked for me, there was two situations. One is we were walking somewhere and I saw somebody wearing a shirt with our logo on it. And I didn't know the person. It wasn't somebody I'd given it to. And I was like, it really clicked. And then Jody and I were in the Houston airport.
Oh yeah.
And we heard somebody from way across the airport going, dude, that's the Road FS guys. That's the Road FS guys. And this person walked up to us and shook our hand, and they were going to the event to meet us. And I'm like, that blew every expectation away. I was like,
really?
Why anybody would fly somewhere to meet us is beyond me. But
yeah, I get pretty embarrassed with all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never expected to be the face of Solution Finish. You know, I thought I'd get one of these hotshot Velocity Channel, Discovery Channel guys, you know, builders, paint guys, you know, that kind of thing, and let them be kind of like the spokesman, you know. But it just turned out that way. I don't know why, but it did.
And it's really good because you've been recognized by the industry. We were there when you won the award for, you know, like Product Company of the Year, and
yeah, that was pretty surprising.
Yeah, that was actually pretty early on too. I was surprised, but
yeah,
no, that says a lot about you.
So coming up here in a couple weeks, you're going to see Chris on TRCMA. Tune in; those things will be videoed that you can rewatch them. You can actually ask live questions about the products. I think they give you guys 45 minutes or something. Jody and I are going to be there this year at a different capacity. We're going to be doing like the after interviews in the green room.
That's actually next week, isn't it?
It's next week.
Yeah, I know. I know.
That's awesome.
So we'll be. They call it the green room, even though it's not. But we're going to be doing some after interviews. We're going to be doing some funny cut up videos and stuff. We love the Rag Company. They give us access where we should not go.
Right.
So we're going to be there. We'll see you guys there.
Get
to hang out for a little while. And then after that, I heard you're going to SEMA this year. You put out a post that said you're going to SEMA.
Yeah. I still don't have a booth in SEMA.
Yeah.
Only because, you know, in those early days I had, you know, I guess I went with a booth for 4 years, but I sit there and stand there for 4 days and I'm going, I didn't make any deals. I'm just talking to hundreds of people, and then I get a flash drive with all their names, 1,200, 1,400 people, and you do a mass email and nobody responds. There's no business. So I decided what I'm going to do is just go around and support all the people that support me all year. You know, and that's more productive, and that's a better use of my time, I think, you know.
Yeah,
that's exactly what we do.
That's what we
go
too.
do live interviews and help promote, you know, the people that
you guys are the best. Absolutely.
So we love
have
that
a
part.
good time
Yeah,
doing
we
it,
have a good time doing it. It's fun. And the other thing about it is we have to keep moving. We're the type of people that just can't sit still. So for me to sit behind a booth for 4 days straight,
we did
I
it
can't
twice,
do it.
and
I
was
cannot do it.
miserable, So.
My first year at SEMA, nobody told me, or maybe I didn't read it, that you can't sell out of your booth, right? You can't sell. So I brought cases of Solution Finish, and I'm like, hey, 2 for 1. I have a fistful of dollars, and I'm breaking. Hey, you know, Dr. Beasley's next to me. Hey, you guys changed for 100, and all the people are looking at me like, what is he doing? And then about the end of the show, real nice guy pulls up in his little cart. He's a floor manager. He goes, you know, I talked to him a couple of times about different things, and he goes, Chris, you know, you're not supposed to sell anything, right? And I go, yeah, I know. And another mistake I made is everybody said, you're going to see thousands of people. You better bring a lot of flyers. So I brought 20,000 flyers. And that's the year that they switched to the scan, you know, the badge. So I had, you know, 800 pounds of flyers that I couldn't do anything, you know, and of course it said SEMA and the date and, you know, SEMA related. And I'm like, you know, and I did. I left them in Vegas. You know.
We made those mistakes early on too, and it was
we all do it.
It's funny because the old school SEMA stories. Jody and I used to do this really, really seedy apartment complex.
Yeah,
I mean it was low budget
rent, baby.
and we would wait for everybody that had to go to work in the morning, and then we would park in there and we would walk to the SEMA show. And there were like, I don't know, 8 parking spots.
8.
We did it for probably 5 years.
Easy.
Same crappy apartment building. And we'd park there and go, people are like, aren't you worried about the car? I'm like, it's a rental. It's insured. We don't care.
Right. Yeah, right.
If it's gone, it's
gone.
It's
gone now. They tore down the apartment complex.
Yeah.
It's probably $80 a day to park there.
Exactly. So
yeah, of course it is. Well, Chris, I'm gonna leave your viewers with this. Anybody that has questions about Solution Finish, wants to reach out to me, has an issue, any kind of particular question that, you know, you find troublesome, feel free to call me, 714-307-8780, Chris@solutionfinish.com. and is my email. And you know, customer service is #1 priority. It always has been, and I think it's served me well. So
Yes, it
there that
has.
is. All right,
Yeah,
love
and
you
I can
guys.
attest to that. I can attest
Yeah.
to that. If you guys have a question or a concern, just talk to Chris directly. He will answer your questions. Tune in to the TRCMA. We'll see you live next week. And then
Yeah.
we'll have another wonderful guest the week after that. We
Yes,
have
we
no
will.
idea who it'll be.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
thank you very much, sir. Always
All right.
appreciate it. See you
You
next
guys
week.
are the best.
Yeah,
Thank
give,
you.
Kimmy,
brother.
give Kimmy our love.
I will, I promise.
All right. Check you later. See ya.